I'm Jill Savage. Let's go ahead and get straight to our panel. Editor-in-Chief, Matthew Peterson.
I think the hottest woman in D.C. just got hotter today.
Yes, she did. And D.C. politics editor Chris Bedford. Chris, so much happening in your city right now.
You're talking about me, right, Matt?
You are not a woman.
I said woman, not person, on purpose to rule you out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was 2023. I forgot. Patriots are in control, and men can't be women anymore.
Well, let's go ahead and get straight to the hottest woman in D.C. It was a big announcement today, and we may be on the brink for only the fifth time in American history that a sitting or former U.S. president could be referred to DOJ for criminal implications.
You've inferred that the former president helped lead a coup. Based on what you now see, do you believe President Obama is guilty of treason?
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
That is what I voted for right there, going through a year-long coup, treasonous conspiracy. I mean, you want to talk about potentially some charges up for Barack Obama. The previous presidents that have been referred to the DOJ, by the way, short list: Nixon for Watergate, Clinton for Monica Lewinsky, Trump obviously multiple times, we know those, and Joe Biden for the mishandling of classified documents. So pretty rare air. Guys, are we going to actually see some action out of this, Matt?
Well, I would just say, just seeing this today, again, like I said yesterday, just speaking the truth is doing my heart a lot of good, because I did not know whether or not we would see this day where in front of the American people, from the pulpit, right, a senior official is saying what the truth is. And that the truth is that this was a treasonous conspiracy, and we'll have to see, what happens next. But here's the thing that to take away from the day, and that is that Tulsi Gabbard is actually doing her job. While other people have been talking, Tulsi Gabbard has been working and is pushing forward exactly where she should. And so kudos to her. She's the hero of the week, and we'll see who else picks up the baton in the weeks to come.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at SOT 2. Tulsi Gabbard did a fantastic job laying out all of the fake intel. Take a look.
The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration.
So, Chris, just plainly speaking, how big of a moment is this politically?
My gosh, I tell you what, it's so much simpler than everything I've been working on with this for the last 8 years. I mean, I used to have to join Maria Bartiromo's show at 6:15 in the morning and get grilled on the latest lies about this FISA application, or this allegation of a spy, or this lie, or this overreach, or this motivation. And now we know definitively, that the entire genesis of this whole thing was false. How can there was no crime? How can there be an investigation of Russian collusion if Russia didn't want Trump to win? And we know this, it kind of reminds me of back in the day. It came out after he passed away that J. Edgar Hoover had been asked, why did you put spies on Barry Goldwater's campaign? Why did you bug his phones? And his response was, if the president tells you to do something, you do it. So the two people who are coming out here as the number one villains are Brennan and President Barack Obama. And that's also interesting, President Obama's implication in this, because we've covered scandals before. We covered the gun-running Eric Holder scandal at the Department of Justice under his tenure. We covered Lois Lerner and the IRS. And a lot of that stuff was chalked up to culture, a culture the administration that made for the targeting of conservatives and opposition seem like it was a reasonable thing to do. Just pushing forward the left-wing agenda was part of the mission, but we were never able to trace those things directly back to the president. Now we have him in the room with the intelligence heads. We have, by the way, it's just two of them. It's just Comey and Brennan. It's not all of the agencies that were claimed. We have that Russia had the kind of information available to it that could have actually turned the election for Trump when it turns out that Hillary Clinton was significantly sicker than expected, both and emotionally unstable. Now, these were things that you could kind of pick up on from watching. You could guess on, and we did. But now we know that the Democrats knew it, and we know that Putin knew it, and we know that even though it didn't make sense that Russia wanted Trump to win, never once made sense that Russia wanted Trump to win, we know that they actually didn't. This also undermines the whole idea, which has driven American foreign policy largely for the last 8 years, that Putin is some kind of criminal mastermind as opposed to a Russian thug who's really good at keeping control of Russian oligarchs. That throws that out the window. It throws every aspect of what the American people have been led by. And the press were polluters on this. They weren't the actual originators. Some of them weren't. Some of them kind of were deeply involved. But other ones were just cheerleaders. They gobbled it all up and they attacked and attacked. But even through it all, the information that we on the press who questioned this had to deal with at least assumed that they really did believe that there was some kind that Russia had wanted Trump to win. Whether or not that was effective or not was something to be argued. Now we know that's not true. We know that they knew it wasn't true. Watergate's got nothing on this. Teapot Dome's got nothing on this. This is the biggest scandal in the last century of American politics.
Yeah. And now we have the actual reports. And it says the CIA misrepresented a lot in the first document. Here we have where the CIA director released 15 intel reports after the 2016 election, but 3 of them were seriously flawed. And those were used as key evidence in this official assessment that they put out saying that Putin preferred Trump over Hillary Clinton. But then in the second document we get, it's only the classified info that's used to make this claim where Putin actually wanted Trump. It came from a small sentence fragment. It wasn't even the entire sentence. They went through, and that's what we get. We get one sketchy line, Matt, with no solid backing, and yet this is what all of the intel was based on, and it just goes through, and we have to wait years and years and years until somebody, like we're saying, Tulsi Gabbard, this might just be like the Tulsi Gabbard appreciation show here, is actually willing to go through the evidence that has always been laid out since 2016 and actually present it to the American people.
Yeah, Jill, there's a shameless irony in these being called intelligence agencies. There's not a lot of intelligence involved here. It's shameless propaganda, what's going on. They don't provide information, right, to the president here. This is a propaganda operation, and the intelligence they do have, the information they do have, simply doesn't show, what the narrative has been throughout the media. So, part of the shameless here is the collusion with the willing media over the course of the last 10 years to say things that, really how hard would it be to figure out? So exactly as you said, you have a shred of evidence from one shoddy report that Putin is even on one side of this, never mind the actual facts, some of which we've known all along, and how little they were involved. So, the question now is, how far does this go? I think about public opinion a lot in terms of public opinion when mainstream media is going to have a hard time covering this, which is why they're not. They're going to try to ignore it. They're still trying to say this is a distraction from Epstein, which is hilarious because they never wanted to talk about Epstein until 5 seconds ago. But they're going to say that. So what are they going to do now? And that's the question to me. Basically, you need everyone who is willing, and I do see people picking up the baton, even some people who call themselves centrist 5 seconds ago. Everyone who's willing and honest needs to take up these reports and start talking about this to push basically the last remaining edifice of old media over. And they chose this. They chose this. They chose to die on this hill. So now we need to make them die on this hill.
And trust me, there was some good stuff that came out of this document dump today. Let's go ahead and take a look at Tulsi Gabbard confirming what she knew about Hillary Clinton and all of her mental health drama.
There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
Excuse me? What? What was that? I first learned of this from Mrs. Bedford. I saw Sarah Bedford put this out on X this morning, and I was like, excuse me, Hillary Clinton on tranquilizers. Chris, there's a lot in these document dumps today.
And it makes me recognize now what we were seeing, what that weird Joker-esque smile that she would have every once in a while, the cackle, the shaking. It turns out that her staff was aware of these. They called it weird, uncontrollable happiness, mania, essentially. We knew from leaks that she had quite the temper, that she would rage, that she would scream, that she would yell and curse. Now we know that that was so bad. The Democrats and the Russians all knew about it and were literally sedating her. I mean, imagine if you could sedate your crazy boss. There's a lot of crazy bosses in Washington, D.C., and none of them get put on sedatives. Now we know about the limp falling at the memorial to 9/11 and that they blamed on the
let's watch that.
beautiful day.
Exactly.
It's wild to see this sort of stuff come out and that the Russians knew it. And you know what else? I was talking about this with Sarah, who's like my encyclopedic knowledge person who I like to pull from. I ask her questions like, remind me what happened with Carter Page, things like that. And she always knows the answer. But I was asking her, where did, I actually kind of lost my train of thought watching that awesome video there. But
remember, the memories come rushing back. That's a conspiracy theory. What are you talking about? Everything's fine.
But it turns out that Putin didn't even in the wildest dreams expect Donald Trump to win. He wasn't going to back that. He didn't want to get in Hillary Clinton's bad side. He was preparing to use this against Hillary. And now we know that once the November happened and the intelligence agencies were scrambling to try and figure out, did the Russians do this to us? How did this possibly happen? Could it be our terrible candidate on sedatives? No way, no possible way. Trump could never win. That the investigation was going to be dead. He was over. Paul Manafort hadn't gone to prison yet. Jeff Sessions hadn't been forced to recuse himself from this. They hadn't gone after Manafort's deputy yet and tried to put him in prison. None of that had happened. And Obama said, go with it. Brennan said, keep it. And the entire thing from there is a lie. Years and years and years.
Now, what's wild to me is, Clinton hatches this plot, it seems like first. According to the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, they had the campaign email where Clinton's talking about linking Putin and Russia to Trump to distract from the email server scandal. She was making this claim like he's the tool of Putin. And then that became her excuse, but then that transferred into the Obama administration. But it's wild that we just think about how much the mainstream media or the legacy media hasn't spoken about. The Russians knew that they were going to try to link the two together. And how could that be good, except for the fact that, as you say, I don't think they ever thought that Trump could win, or even were that strongly for him. So this whole thing is astounding. The fact that we've been in the dark for so long. But the question now is, how far do we push this forward? And I guess what we can all say, right, just seeing Tulsi get up there and say these things that have been true for a long time, that even on the right, as you were saying early on, oh, you're not supposed to say it. Oh, well, we don't know that. This makes me very uncomfortable to talk about this. Just to see someone say it out loud, I feel like some kind of dam is broken, and hopefully a lot of good stuff is going to flow behind it.
Yeah, people, they always say none dare call it treason, but it didn't prosper this time. And this is the first time you have an official from the White House out there. And you're right, this is a total vindication of those people, including us, who backed Tulsi Gabbard for this post. Some people try to say she's a former Democrat or she doesn't have the experience, but we knew, and we talked about it in the show, that the main thing that she had was she didn't trust the intelligence agencies. She was willing to take a jaundiced eye to this whole thing. She wasn't simply coming from inside the deep state trying to protect it. She wasn't going to say, oh, it turns out the head of the CIA was super corrupt and so was the president. But we're going to close the chapter on that because it'd be too hard for the American people to learn that sort of thing. We need to maintain the trust that they have. By the way, the trust is already shattered. Those are the calculations that really would have come across the minds and probably governed the decisions of almost any previous person in that position, director of national intelligence, or almost any powerful person in Washington, D.C. The willingness and the instinct to protect your own, to protect the institution, to maintain the lie, to say that we've all moved on, or this has already been reported, or it's in the past. We want to let bygones be bygones. We're keeping an eye toward the future, doing that politician thing where they use their thumbs so that they don't look aggressive and pointing. That's what you normally get, and that is not what we're getting from Gabbard. That's never what we've gotten from President Trump, and it's really refreshing.
Yeah, well, the last thing we'll have to keep an eye on in the future here, Jill, is the fact that Obama did respond, right? And so Trump got Obama to actually say something in response. It left a lot of questions out there, but it was astounding that he did respond because he's been silent and protected this entire time. So that is something that we're going to be keeping a close eye on in the coming weeks.
We absolutely will. And Tulsi Gabbard, keep the document dumps coming. We can't wait to see more here on The Mandate.